All right, so now we're going to talk about a section on our general shop practices, our general workflow, and try to cover some basic information as regards to what are the regular things that you'll need to do while you're working from day to day and week to week, what are the materials, things that we need to pay attention to, and just some specifics of how the day-to-day activities are going to work. Now, the first thing that we have is what are some things that need to be done on a daily basis. One is your wrist strap checks. Your ESD wrist strap is important to making sure that the equipment is safe and not going to be damaged, and for keeping you safe as well, not getting shocked and things like that. You need to make sure that that is checked every day. When we go to the main system, there's a spot where you'll actually verify that by checking on that when you log in each day. The wrist strap checkers are located in the boardroom in the middle and in the engineering lab in the back. If you need to locate those, please check with your supervisor. If you're working in a mechanical shop, you don't need one, but if you're working around electronics or any repair items especially, it needs to be verified on that day. We need to make sure that flammables are dealt with on a regular basis. Anything, I know Kim covered that in the previous section, anything that's flammable needs to be in a flammable cabinet when it's not being used. Particularly at the end of each day, make sure that the alcohol containers that you may have been using or any other flammables are placed back in the equipment at the end of the day. All equipment needs to be shut down. The breakers are actually shut down on the repair side at the end of each night, so you can't even leave on a computer or anything else. It will be shut off, but it's just good to make sure before you get up from your bench and leave for the day that everything is powered down. Soldering irons are especially one to make sure that you get taken care of. Also, check your timesheets. It's very easy to do at the end of the day just to make sure that your hours were all entered so you're not trying to come back at a later date and remember what it was that you did. As regards to your timesheets, those need to be entered. Like I said, they're built from the hours that are entered on your work logs. So your time cards that you turn in are based on what you put in. So make sure that you enter good information on your work log entries. As you go through the day, you can verify this at the end of each day, but especially make sure that on the end of each week that you make sure that your week is correct and complete. The reason for that is once the next week starts, you can no longer edit any work log entries older than the current week. So every Friday you have to make sure. Every other Friday, we'll actually print the timesheet, sign it, and turn it into your supervisor or put it in the location that your supervisor has designated them to be turned into. As far as which Friday is a timesheet Friday, the screen as you walk in the side door will usually let you know if you happen to forget which week you got paid or not. So you want to make sure that those are turned in. If you happen to be gone on a particular Friday, then your supervisor can print the timesheet and make an addition or make some changes. Administrators can override that 1 week boundary, but try to make sure that it's all entered. Also, we want to make sure that our work areas are kept clean. On a regular basis, you want to make sure that you do go through and keep your work area clean, but particularly on Friday afternoons, take some time at the end of the day to actually go through and do a good cleanup of your work area. That is, put away any equipment that you're not using, file any papers, if they need to be scanned, if they need to be put away, go ahead and get that taken care of then. Make sure that all equipment that you have is properly tagged and is in proper location. So sometimes as we're working, you might pull stuff from one shelf to another and we don't get the locations, tags changed in the database. Make sure that you kind of go through and verify that everything that's in your area is properly tagged. That way we don't end up down the road with equipment being mislabeled. And then also grab the Simple Green, wipe down your benchtop areas. The offices are all cleaned every Wednesday night by cleaning staff, but they will not wipe down your bench, right? So they're not going to get onto the benches, so nothing's damaged. So any dust or whatever, we need to take care of those on the actual work surfaces to do that. In addition to that, if you use any shared workspace, make sure that you clean that up immediately when you're done. Okay, so if you're at a soldering station or you're at the microscope stations or one of those other shared workspaces, make sure that you go through and clean that up as soon as you're finished working with it. Some product expires, okay, and any product that has a shelf life is going to be tagged with a shelf life tag that will have the expiration date on it. First off, always make sure that anything that has a shelf life tag, that you check the date before you use it. Whether that is a paint, whether it's an epoxy, a glue, anything that you might even not consider it to be perishable, but check to see if it has a label on it. Most consumables, if they don't have an expiration date, they will still have a sticker on there that will basically have a date of $29.99. So you know that it's okay to use. But verify those labels every time you use it. Anything that is expired, not only don't use it, but immediately turn it into your supervisor. Some products can be retained to use internally for non-customer assets, but they need to be tagged appropriately and checked out of the system. Anything that you use up, don't just throw away the tube. Every piece of consumable is checked in a system that's tracked. And if you throw away a tube without notifying or turning it in, and it doesn't get checked out that it got disposed of, then later on when it comes around expiration date, someone's going to be going around looking for it and not be able to find it, so the tube's been thrown away. So every tube is uniquely identified and needs to be checked out of the system. So if you use up a can of spray paint, turn it in. Don't just throw it away. You can turn that into your supervisor, or you can turn it into the quality office up in the front. And if you find anything, just even if you're not using it, you come across something that's either empty or that's expired, please turn it in. The 400 hertz generator, pretty important part of getting work done, but it's also something that we want to make sure doesn't get damaged or damage any equipment. So first off, if you're going to use the 400 hertz for anything and it's not already turned on, make sure that you notify the labs that you're going to turn it on. That way, if someone had something plugged in or they're working on it, you can make sure that it's not going to get turned on unexpectedly to them. That's simply going down the hall, knock on the door, and let them know, hey, 400's coming on. Sometimes it's already on when you need to go use the 400. At that point, all you need to do is go into the room where the generator is and put on your little marker tag. You will be given a set of identification tags that are linked to you, and you want to put your tag on the control panel for the generator. Even if it's already on. If it isn't on, you still put your tag on there and then turn it on. There's a procedure printed in that room. You engage the control panel first before engaging the breakers. That way you don't have the voltage spinning up while it's already connected possibly to things that are plugged in. So wait till it spins up, engage the breaker. When you're done using the 400, make sure you go back in there and remove your tag that says that you're done. If yours is the last tag on the control panel, go ahead and shut it down following the procedure that's in the room there. If you have any questions, please get with your supervisor and they'll walk you through the process the first couple of times. And also, don't leave stuff hooked up to the 400. You don't want necessarily it's turned off and you had something there and a switch get bumped and then it comes back on and you don't realize that some equipment's going to be energized or something like that. So always make sure that when you're done, you flip off the switch, you unplug the cord, whatever it is that you have hooked up to that 400 hertz outlet. Make sure that you disconnect it when you're done with it. Another item that we want to pay attention to is use of tools. Now, general hand tools is expected that you would provide your own. Screwdrivers, wrenches, things like that. Use your own tools. There are some tools provided, but not necessarily enough for everybody to do. Now, anything that's specialized, the company does provide, whether those are specific crimpers, machining equipment, finishing equipment, specialized fastener tools, those sorts of things. They are kept in a tool cabinet that is in the equipment room. If you use any piece of equipment from that cabinet, then use one of your marker tags on the checkout sheet on the door. So it's a magnetic tag, and you'll put it on the sheet on the door over the item of equipment that you're using. That way, if someone else needs that, they at least know where to go looking for it, rather than having to walk through the whole building and try to find it. When you're done with the tool, return it to the cabinet and pull your marker chit off of the thing. Now, most equipment that's not stored in those tools is generally free to move from place to place. There is an unused equipment rack in that room. If you have things you're not using, that's the best place to put it where people can find it quickly and easily. We do recognize that sometimes, you're done using a piece of equipment, but you're going to need it again a little bit later. You just keep it on your bench, power supply or something like that. Most of the technicians will have a couple of power supplies on their benches at any point being used for various things as they're going throughout the day. Those items don't need to be checked out, okay? At this point, we don't have a checkout system for that equipment. That is great as long as it works, but basic rules for that is be courteous. Don't go into someone else's lab while they're on lunch and take their equipment, right? Or if you're here a little bit late in the day and they're not using it right then, just go tearing apart their stuff. Always check with someone before you take apart any setup that they have going on to make sure that they're really done with it, or at least that if they're going to be returning to it, they know that you have the piece of equipment and can return it when they need it. Always on electrical equipment, check the expiration or the calibration dates. It's important that anything that's being used for sign-off is in calibration, otherwise the test is not valid. So always check your calibration stickers on the equipment before it's used. This applies to both the electrical and the mechanical. There's checkout gauges, thread gauges, calipers, micrometers, anything like that that's being used for measuring equipment. Verify those calibrations. Some of the things, especially mechanical, you also need to compare them against a gauge block before you use them. So double check with your supervisor if you have any questions about that. Any equipment that is out of calibration needs to be reported to the quality manager or your supervisor whenever you find it. And if you have anything broken, always notify your supervisor so that it can get pulled from the floor and get repaired quickly. Again, safety is important, and when you're working around equipment, you need to be safe. There's a couple things that we want to draw special attention to that you may not be aware of. Obviously, loose clothing, long hair around machines is a pretty normal one, but also in electronics, you need to be careful. A ring on a finger can short across some terminals and cause damage or injury to yourself. Watch out especially for charged up capacitors. Power supplies, if you're working on them, can be especially dangerous because it can be hours after the equipment's de-energized that a large capacitor can still have harmful current capabilities in it. Always pay attention to any safety labels, and again, do not use any piece of equipment before you fully understand how it works. Electrical equipment might not be as dangerous per se, but it can also be easily damaged as the larger machine tools that feel dangerous to use. As we're going through the process of building or repairing items, there's a couple of guides that we use for performing the work. When it's electrical assembly, wiring, mechanical assembly such as painting, fixing metal bends or breaks, safety wiring, assemblies of screws, large number of those things are all covered by that technical order 0025-234 that's available on the electronic system, which I'll show you under the quality manual section. And always check to see if that has some guidance for doing any work before you do it, because there's a lot of good information in that thing. The IPC 610 is the acceptance criteria for soldering. Both surface mount, through-hole components on circuit boards, wires attached to turrets, and soldered wire assemblies are all covered by that. Those technical order and those IPC standards are the things that the inspectors will be checking against as they're verifying work that's done. As you're going throughout the repair process, you need to make sure that work that is being done, or build process, work that's being done is inspected appropriately. If you're doing work on a board, it needs to be inspected. If you're looking in the work log, there are steps, and when you do a step, that the next step in the list is a green one, make sure that you call for that inspection. If you do some painting, make sure you get the painting inspection. If you're doing some assembly, make sure you get the assembly inspection. If you're doing some soldering, make sure you get the soldering inspection. Now, if you're doing a bunch of things all at once, you don't have to interrupt and call for inspection after every immediate one. If you're replacing 5 components here and 5 components down here, go ahead and replace them all and then get one inspection. It's okay to have multiple step 5s that are then followed by a step 6, for example. But we do need to make sure that the inspections happen before you do some other follow-on that would make the inspection impossible. don't wait to get the painting inspected of a part that's going inside of something after you've already put it inside of the thing and put it together, because you have to take it back apart to get that inspection taken care of. So that is just some general things to keep in mind as we're going through the day-to-day activities of the facility here.